just remembers my dad, despite his enthusiasm for life, and just his knack to share good times with others. He was an incredibly supportive dad who had high expectations for us, but at the end of the day, it was always about like enjoying yourself and enjoying your life. I remember in middle school, we used to always watch CSI together, and he'd like sometimes tell me to stop doing my homework because it was more important for us to have father-son time, which I think was a good message. We always had these massive 4th of July parties when we were growing up, before we were all in high school.
My freshman year was the last one. A few of my friends.
To emphasize how responsible our parents were, that once we became interested in drinking, the parties really stopped. But until then, we would have these massive parties, and it always started off where there'd be 100 people invited, and then over the coming weeks between the first invite list and the party, we'd always like meet new people through sports or whatever, or we'd decide we should invite someone who lives in New York, and then it would end up coming. We'd have 350 people coming to it, and I have this vivid memory of Mom having this giant handwritten list of like 5 pages of paper, these people, and like us going through and marking it. And then everyone came, and it was always way too packed, but my dad had a blast every time. So it was great memories. And so what's meant the most to me since we've had that fortunate news this past Friday was just getting all these examples from people about how generous, inclusive, and considerate my father was. He had 9 first cousins in addition to his siblings who he was very close with. They spent most weekends together, and they emphasized his knack to share his happiness with others, whether it be pushing his younger cousins on a go-kart down the driveway. That was pretty funny. He was always supportive in there in tough times. This reminded me of his recent love for tomatoes, where we went to this one restaurant and they had this really good grilled tomatoes, and ever since, this was my sophomore year of college, and ever since then my dad has been trying to grow tomatoes in our backyard. So the first few years, my dad really didn't have a good sense for how much yield of tomatoes you actually get when you plant them. So for the first 4 years, we had like just way too many tomatoes. And tomatoes also, we didn't realize like they take so long to grow. So between like August and September, my dad would go into any person's house like offering them tomatoes and pushing them on people. And they're like, why is this guy pushing tomatoes? I can see it on their face. He really loved it, and it was just a good example of like how he loved to share his joys with others. In a more serious note, a lot of his former employees came to the visitation line yesterday from his company started, IMB, and they talked about how much they appreciated my dad giving him their first job and how great of a boss he was, which is something that we had less exposure to. And it was pretty cool to see that. It meant a lot. I also know that a few of my friends told me about the experience that they had when they lost their own father and mother, and how my dad wrote to them without telling us, and that it really meant a lot to them. And we didn't know about it because he was such a humble guy. So I think these are just kind of the small examples that help explain the gratitude I have that my father was there in my life for the time we had him. I know we're all sad he left us, but we're happy that he's here. And hope that in the same way that I got to know my grandfather through my dad's messages and other people's memories of him, that those who never got to meet my father can get to know him through us and his influence in all of our lives.